Following Friday's bombshell news that the Houston Texans agreed to release star defensive end J.J. Watt, close to a dozen teams have queued up and are said to have expressed interest in bringing him in. According to reports, the top three in the queue are Pittsburgh, where his brothers TJ and Derek play, Cleveland, and Buffalo. The decision for Watt comes down to the team that has the best chance to get him to a Super Bowl. The soon-to-be 32-year-old has never been to a conference championship. Watt coming off just his second 16-game season since 2015. Last season, he finished with 52 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception that he returned for a touchdown. He is by far the most productive pass rusher in Texans history, 101 career sacks. And for more on where Watt might land, let's now welcome in senior NFL insider Jason La Canfora. JLC, you heard it there. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo leading the chase to get him. Green Bay also in the running. What are you hearing in terms of where Watt would prefer to go?
Yeah, I would just caution, this is not a feeding frenzy, despite what some would try to have you believe. This is a player who has a legacy in this league. No two ways about it. But he also has a legacy of injuries and serious injuries and a lot that his body's been through. If this was a player who truly had 12 teams chasing after him, the Texans would have quickly executed a trade with one of them, and they'd have been happy to take on his salary, and we'd move on. So, but yeah, are there teams that are monitoring this who think he could upgrade their rosters? Sure. I'll just go back to my original reporting in November when I first said he would not be back with the Texans in 2021. Green Bay and Pittsburgh were obvious matches and fits for him. He grew up in Wisconsin, played in Wisconsin. Green Bay is on the cusp. At least they have been on the cusp the last 2 years. And J.J. Watt knows there might only be 16, 18, 20 games left in his body. He wants to win right now. Now, they still have Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, but there's some in the league who think Preston Smith could be a cap casualty at some point. And then Pittsburgh, you mentioned them among the front runners. He obviously has family ties to that team. That's a, what franchise is more historic and iconic than the Steelers? And Mike Tomlin's also never had a losing season. So while they're in a bit of cap turmoil right now, this isn't going to be a Buffo contract. It's going to be team-friendly with incentives wherever he goes. And that's a team that lost Bud Dupree in the middle of last year on a franchise tag. Even if Dupree's back on the cheap, he won't be ready for week 1. That would make a lot of sense.
And that's, you get into a situation where you're talking about a guy like Watt. As you mentioned, he's got that injury, history. So you're talking about possibly load management, which doesn't make sense when you look at the number. I mean, he was set to make $17.5 million next season. It seems like the team in the best position in terms of a salary for him at this point is the Browns, JLC. What do you make of the kind of friendly salary that he's going to have to take?
Yeah, I think for him, the money is going to be somewhat negligible given what he will likely make in 2021 versus what his annual compensation's been for the last 6 or 7 years, really since he first renegotiated his rookie contract. I mean, Cleveland, maybe. I think this is going to be more for J.J. Watt about where do I want to bookend my career? How do I want to go out? And who do I want to play with? And I think it's about the locker room, it's about family ties, or it's about, in the case of Green Bay, a literal homecoming in terms of geography and the like. I get that Buffalo needs an edge presence. They need a pass rusher as well. But I think all things being equal, if it's something that makes cap sense and makes roster sense for a Green Bay or for a Pittsburgh, that's where I'd put my money.
So Deshaun Watson announces that he wants to leave, asks for the trade, but J.J. Watt is the one who gets to walk away for nothing. When you look at Watson, he must be fuming at this. What's the latest on his situation in Houston?
Yeah, his situation isn't changing anytime soon. It's not related to J.J. Watt, though, and Deshaun Watson understands that. J.J. Watt is at the end of his career. J.J. Watt is at the end of a long-term extension, not the start of it. J.J. Watt is far from his prime. J.J. Watt has injury concerns. And J.J. Watt would not have fetched any kind of significant trade return given all those factors I just mentioned. It's the exact opposite for this guy, who also plays even more of a premium position. So no, I don't think one affects the other whatsoever. Everybody in that locker room has known since early November, when I knew that this was it for J.J. Watt. He wanted out before the trade deadline, and he wasn't going to be there in 2021. He was sick of playing meaningless games for a franchise that wasn't going anywhere. Now, Deshaun Watson feels the same way, but he just signed a contract in September. He is in his prime. He would have a true feeding frenzy of franchises throwing picks and players at the Texans for the right to secure his services. This one will probably have to continue to get much uglier before it gets resolved. There's a lot of time between now and the draft. And if you're looking for any sort of deadline or faux deadline when it comes to a Deshaun Watson trade, the first most obvious indicator would be the draft, because there would likely be a bonanza of draft picks involved in this trade, and the Houston Texans would want to start recouping some of them in the 2021 draft, not having to wait for future drafts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.